I'm Marc Rancourt, and I'm in the Boo Club.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Battle of Ontario Hockey Podcast. I'm Flem, and we got little Martin St. Louis over there, Brokey. So guys, before we get into anything, we got a big show coming on today. We got former Belleville Bulls captain Marc Rancourt coming on the show later to talk about his hockey career. So we're super pumped to bring that to you guys. And before we get into it, the show is sponsored by Monument Geomatics. Visit monumentge.com for more information. So how's it going, Brokey? Looking sharp there, 26?
Looking good, buddy. I you know me, I like to wear the jerseys, eh? So, Marty St. Louis, for actually, you probably never really talked about him on the show, but was always my favorite player, probably the last 2004 to 2015 when he retired, kind of thing. So when he was announced to be the coach, I was shocked. I was not surprised, or I was surprised with that big time. Like, I didn't even know he was in the running for it. So, of course, today's our first episode back. I got to toss on the Marty St. Louis jersey. It's weird, eh? The 26. You don't see that. I don't even know if any teams have that anymore. But they did have that this year. I think this is probably like 2012 or 13, something like that. Yep. It's a little bit tight. I think that was a little smaller about 9-10 years ago when I bought this jersey, but it still fits. Just I wouldn't be able to put shoulder pads on. But
so moving from your shirt to your hat, I see you have a Pay Forward Sports hat on there, bro. Did you have anything pumped for Pay Forward Sports? Or?
I do, buddy. I do. So we got lots of stuff going on, as you know, but maybe our viewers don't know. So the biggest one we want to talk about. This is going to be the biggest hockey tournament probably of the year in our area. It's a 4-on-4, Kings of 4-on-4 championship. We've already had Sean Avery helping pump us up. For anybody that doesn't know, it's April 8th to 10th. There's going to be a pile of teams. It's 4-on-4. The winning team ran away. They win a trip to Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. So the prize for first place is unbelievable. I haven't seen another hockey tournament, at least in our area, where you win a prize like that. As simple as that. Now, I know there's some of you saying, well, my wife might not let me go to Vegas, and there's probably a lot of wives out there. I'm not chirping wives, guys. I'm having fun. But you know what? You don't have to go to Las Vegas. You can take, instead of going with the Las Vegas trip, your team can use it as travel credits. So if you guys wanted to, you could all have singles if you want. You can, and you don't have to go together. We would prefer that. But again, if you said, hey, we just want to take each guy gets a credit, and we can book whatever we want in the travel industry, boom, you can do that. So it's an awesome prize, guys. We just promote it as Las Vegas because that's what the trip that we have on hold, basically, the value for a team. So there's up to 12 guys. So we have it based on 11 skaters and a goalie. So there'll be 12 people to Vegas is what we've have in the works. If you end up having a guy or two more, it's not the end of the world. You're just not going to get, if you win, you won't get that prize worthy. It's 4-on-4 hockey. It's going to be a ton of fun. Guaranteed 3 games, up to 7 games, Fleming.
Up to 7?
Yeah, there's prizes for second place, golf passes. This is another one, BOOclub Sports, which is what we're on right now. We are going to do our own little thing here for this. So we're gonna have a draw for Toronto Blue Jays tickets, right, Flem?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So one rand, and this is the best part, guys. You may not go. You may want to enter the tournament and think, well, you know what? We're probably not going to win. There's going to be some good teams there. You never know, right? First off, but again, for this draw with the BOOclub Sports, the best part about it is it doesn't matter what place you finish. You could be first to last. We're going to draw one random team, and you don't have to buy tickets or anything. Just for entering the tournament, we're going to draw one random team, and the whole team wins Blue Jays tickets. So it's going to be a ton of fun. We are working on some more prizes as well. We're trying to have a bar up at one of the rinks. Again, once we finalize teams, we get a little closer. It is about 2 months away. It's 8 weeks actually away right now. So we'll have more as far as the actual arenas you'll be at, but it'll be in the Quinte area. So it's looking at like Trenton, Madoc, Marmora, Frankfurt, that kind of area right now. But it's going to be a ton of fun, guys. I'm telling you, this is going to be the biggest tournament in the area.
Just one thing I want to add here, Brokey, too. A lot of guys have been telling me, like, if they don't go to Vegas, they're just going to plan like a big golf trip or maybe like a trip to like a Blue Jays game or a Leafs game with the team, right? So again, you don't necessarily have to go to Las Vegas if you're a little dicey about traveling, you want to stay in Canada. We can figure out lots of things for you and your team to do within Canada too, or Ontario. So lots of great things to do with this prize package. So come on out. It's going to be a great weekend and become the Kings of Vegas, baby.
And the second part to go on with that is we have another tournament just before that. It's 3 weeks before that, March 18th to 20th. It's a 3-on-3 All-Star Championship at World Elite in Belleville. It's a bit of a smaller tournament, but we're still going to have probably at least 16 teams, we figure. It is starting to get full. We do have some spots available. There's a few spots available in each division, but it is going to be full within the next probably week or two, A-Plum. So get your teams, and that's going to be fun. One of the prizes, so there's a rec division for that. You win a Jack Cook's gift card for the rec division. For the competitive division, you win free entry into the 4-on-4 championship, which I forgot to mention. The price for that is $1,100, tax included per guy. So it's actually less than $100 per guy to enter to win a chance to win these awesome prizes, including a trip to Las Vegas, or use a travel credit anywhere you want. We're also going to have at this 3-on-3 championship is other prizes, but we're going to do the target shooting, rapid fire it's called, and we're going to have it's going to be a ton of fun. Whoever wins is going to win $100. We're going to have possibly sticks for second place, BOOclub gear for third, and we even going to have a certain number where if you get over that number, we're going to buy you a beer. So it's going to be a ton of fun, guys, and everybody that enters the March tournament gets one free entry into that, and then it's $5 for each entry after that. So we got a lot of things on the go, bud, and we're going to have some golf announced probably in the upcoming weeks, but we have lots of golf planned for this season, like almost one a month. So it's and they're all different. So yeah, lots of stuff going on with Pay It Forward Sports, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to remind everyone that part of the proceeds from everything we do at Pay It Forward Sports and BOOclub Sports goes towards getting local kids into sports that can't afford to play. So you're helping out a great cause in the community while promoting being active yourself. So come on out to our tournaments. Have a great day. But I think we've talked about enough for us for a little bit, Brokey. Let's get into the Marc Rancourt interview here. So guys, Belleville Bulls captain, was a 4-year Bull, played with Jason Spezza, David Silverstone, Matt Stajan, had a great career in Belleville, and then went on to win the Canadian University Championship and also played a few years pro. So here we go, guys. This episode is sponsored by Monument Geomatics. Visit monumentge.com for more information. Here we go, guys. Marc Rancourt.
Born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, this young man played 4 seasons for the late Belleville Bulls, including being team captain in the 2004-2005 season. He then went on to have a great CIS career, playing 5 seasons for St. Mary's University, where he was also captain. This gentleman played a few years professionally in Germany, Austria, and ECHL. Ladies and gentlemen, one of your Belleville Bulls captains, Marc Rancourt.
There's a clap. How's it going, Marc?
Hey,
nice
guys.
to have you on, buddy.
Thanks, fellas. Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So we'll maybe just start off with some Bull stuff. So actually, why don't we start off from Ottawa? We're going to get into that. So you're born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario. What's it kind of like? Obviously, living in a bigger city, a million, to coming and playing junior hockey in a small city of 50,000 like Belleville.
Oh, it was awesome. I honestly don't think I could have picked a better junior town to spend 4 years. So I certainly lucked out. But yeah, it was a bit of a cultural change, moving from the big city to the smaller town feel. Our school, we went to Quinney Secondary. We had uniforms and a few other new things that I wasn't used to from my high school years in Ottawa prior to moving over. But it was honestly great. Like some of the best 4 years of my life for sure. Got to know a lot of people in the city, became regulars at different restaurants, and really cherish those days. It's Belleville's always going to have a very special place in my heart, and I try to get back the odd time when I'm back home in Ottawa. It's only 2.5 hours away, so we try to get out. And you know what, my folks miss those days. So the nostalgia kicks in when you're driving down the 401 towards Belleville, and we always make a point of doing a pit stop and going to some of the old places and seeing if any of the same faces are there.
That's awesome. Love that story too. That's what a couple of guys have said, is they always stop by or they go to the mall or something. But no,
yeah, they always do kind of. They go to like you say, like I think it was Silverstone, and I think Mole said it too, where they always pop in. So when you do that, is there a couple places in mind that you'd go to? Like, is there a food stop or?
Well, we spent a lot of time, and I apologize if some of these places are no longer there. Hopefully they are, but it has been a few years since I've been able to pop in. But I would say every day at lunch when we were on school days, we were at the food court. So definitely spent a lot of time there. Prime time was our breakfast spot on the main strip there. Kelsey's Montana's, the movie theater. Those were kind of the regular spots, and obviously Kelsey's and Montana's is not the same folks working there anymore. But yeah, it's a weird feeling. You go back and you just kind of feel like, man, I spent a lot of time at these places, and it's nice. It definitely feels like a second home.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was the Herons that owned Montana's and Kelsey's, if I'm not mistaken. I think they own a place in Kingston now. But anyways, yeah, things have changed. It's not Kelsey's anymore. It's another restaurant in the prime time. That was awesome. We've talked about that before. It was like $2.99, and you got this great big breakfast day. That's Domino's Pizza now. I know that too well because I live right near it. But no, it's definitely cool to hear. That the ex player, the old players of the Bulls coming back and remembering Belleville in a real good way.
Oh, absolutely. And just even driving around some of the more residential areas, like over by Moyers Secondary, that's where I billeted for my first 2 years, and getting out to Corbyville as well, where I spent the second two. It's not even the restaurants and the shops; it's the old houses. It's the same drive you were doing every day, and just kind of reliving it. It's great.
Awesome. Yeah. So Mark, when you get drafted, Belleville, well, you are an Ottawa guy, so you may have been a little bit of a 67s fan, but did you know you're on Belleville's radar when you're getting drafted? And what was kind of the moment like when you heard your name get for the OHL draft?
So you might not believe me, but Ottawa, and maybe it was my own sort of ignorance, but the OHL draft was never really something that was on my radar. I actually got a call the following day, and to this day I can't recall who the gentleman was who called me to tell me I was drafted, but he wasn't a member of the Belleville Bulls. I think he was just active within the Ottawa hockey community. So sure enough, I went and checked the paper, and they had I think it was 15 drafts that year, or 15 rounds that year, laid out in the Ottawa Citizen, and sure enough, there I was in the ninth round, taken by Belleville. So I was obviously thrilled. But I don't know, growing up in Ottawa, and I don't know if this was again an Ottawa thing or just me not coming from a hockey family and not really knowing what's what. The school route was always my plan. If I was going to be fortunate enough to get that opportunity, school was kind of a priority that my parents sort of instilled in me. And so even though I had been drafted and I was excited and certainly flattered that I had been drafted, it wasn't necessarily the life-changing experience at the time that I now know it was, because I never thought I would ever play there. But I can recall that would have been 2001, and in '99, Ottawa hosted the 67s hosted the Mem Cup, and Belleville won the OHL championship that year, so they were there. So it was funny. You're right. I grew up a 67s fan, but I vividly remembered going to those games when Belleville was playing, because we had tickets to all the games for the Mem Cup, and it was exciting. It was kind of like get to go play for the hometown rivals, and see where it goes. But yeah, so believe it or not, it was never really something that was on my radar, but it was obviously very exciting and flattering to get the call.
So did you ever give like any thought to not coming to Belleville? Like, were you thinking maybe I'll go finish high school here and do the college or university around the States, or?
Honestly, so what was that? That was 2000 was my draft year. So that season, I went and tried out for the local junior A team, who also drafted me. I was a first cut, two days into training camp. I was let go. I went and tried out. I played one exhibition game in junior B, realized quickly that wasn't going to be for me. It wasn't. I think there were 7 fights that game, and that wasn't really my thing. So I was kind of like, I was in a weird spot. I'd had a decent major bantam year, which was the draft year back then. I guess that's minor midget now. I had a decent year, but I certainly didn't blow the socks off of anyone. And I was honestly at a point where I didn't know if I was going to play my 16-year-old year. And fortunately, the lady who ran our minor hockey program happens to be Grant Clitsom's mom. He went on to have an NHL career, but she gave me a call and just said, "Hey, you got a couple of friends who have signed up for midget this year. Like, have you put any thought into it?" And I was just kind of like, "Oh, who's coming out?" And she rhymed off a few names of guys I was friends with, and I said, "Sure, I'll come. That sounds like fun. Like, I don't want to stop playing hockey. I just don't want to play junior B." So went back and played midget, and I don't know, something sort of clicked that year for me. I don't know if it was a growth spurt or filling out or, finding the coordination after the growth spurt, but ended up having a really good year. We went to provincials, lost to the Young Nats in the finals. And I think having a good year there and the Crawford family, our scouts at the time, paying close attention, and me having the opportunity to play in front of them a few times that year. And fortunately, it was usually games that I had good games at. I guess I impressed them, and so that summer they were quite upfront about, they thought I had a very good chance of cracking the Belleville team that year. Belleville had just graduated two of the, I can't remember if they were first and second in scoring or third and fourth or something. It was the Randy Rowe, Branko Radivojevic, Kyle Wellwood line, and Wellwood had just lost a couple of wingers, so they were trying to find anyone in the system who might be able to keep up with Kyle Wellwood, who unfortunately that didn't end up being me, but at least got my foot in the door, and I never looked back. Started playing for Belleville that next year.
It's crazy, yeah. So what was like your first training camp? You said you weren't a big fighter, and junior B was kind of intimidating. What was your first camp like? Because I'm sure guys were all over the map with fights in that first camp, right?
Yes, they were. Yeah, no. Well, like I said, I was given an opportunity to start the year with Welly, Kyle Wellwood, coming off leading the league in scoring. You can imagine, coming from midget, that was a little bit intimidating. That first day of training camp, when you look up on the board and your name's next to the guy who led the league in scoring the previous year. I can recall my first shift. It was about 30 seconds into the first shift of the game, and Welly just did something I had never seen before. He took a breakout pass. He came in. He somehow split the D, but doing it, he didn't just skate through them. He kind of dangled them as he went in, and then he pulled the goalie way out of the net. And I was just kind of following him, going like, what the heck is going on here? Like, this is quite the show. And he had, I don't know how he knew I was there, but he just kind of no-looked, threw it behind right on my stick. But the goalie had come so far out of the net that I managed to miss the open net and put it between the goalie and the post. So I missed the net. And I was just kind of like, what the heck just happened? We got to the bench, and of course, Welly being Welly just kind of looked over and said, you didn't feel like scoring that one, or like what happened there?
I like that.
Yeah, I said, Mr. Wellwood, I have never seen what that just was. You're gonna have to bear with me here today. But we did end up having a good game. Playing with the defending league scoring champ in a training camp environment. You can usually find the score sheet a little bit. So I do think we put up some points that day. But it was fun and it was eye-opening, and I did manage to avoid the rough stuff somehow. I'm sure I took some big hits that day, but didn't have to drop the gloves, which was nice.
Yeah, that's now one of the questions I like to ask is, was it the Crawfords who, like you're saying, they were following you? So were they the ones that finally the first ones to kind of get a hold of you? Because you said after the draft, nobody really called you or nothing. You had to find out through the paper, right?
Yeah, and you know what, my memory's probably a little bit off on that, just in terms of who I spoke to and when it was. I'm sure I spoke to the Crawfords a few times, both Floyd and Mike, but yeah, they certainly played a huge part in me joining that team. Obviously, the Vaughns at the time were the Crawfords had the Vaughns trust, and they were out there watching all their prospects, and certainly a strong endorsement from Floyd, I'm sure went a long way in terms of paving the way for me to get there. So I owe a lot to the Crawford family for sure for getting me my opportunity, and the Vaughns as well. It was like I said, the OHL was not on the radar for me. It was the school route or bust, and going through that process, learning that the OHL will cover some of your university expenses if you choose to go there after your OHL career. That those were things I just wasn't aware of, and so luckily I got the best of both worlds. I got to play for a great organization in the OHL like Belleville, and got a little bit of help on the school side when the OHL career had wrapped up.
And it's crazy how you talked about how some guys kind of develop a little later, right? Like obviously that happened to you, that you went back, you played your major midget year, or I guess it would have been midget then, but I get it now they call it major midget. And it's funny, I've seen it too. And even when I played a year of major midget, and it was so much fun. And you see some guys develop so much, and then they get, like for instance, Andrew Shaw, Belleville guy, he played a year of major midget, right? And he ends up having a 2-time Stanley Cup champion, right? So you don't always have to make that jump to junior at 16. A lot of guys do, and most of them, that's how you have success, but not everybody. Some guys need that extra year for development and to grow on their body, to get confidence even, right? If you go and you're playing against 18, 19, 20-year-olds at 16 and you're not ready, you kind of lose it, right? But if you learn, I can score, I can do this, it sounds like you gained a lot of confidence that year. And then, of course, the Crawfords see it and go, listen, we're going to try this guy with Wellwood. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, definitely a compliment to the major midget year for sure, right?
Yeah, no, and you know what? Leanne was her name, and Grant's mom. Like without that phone call, one phone call, when you look back in retrospect, like that phone call literally changed my life. Like who knows where I'd be today if I had decided to hang him up as a 16-year-old. And I'm certainly thankful that she went out of her way to make that call. I haven't probably talked to her since that year, or perhaps a year or two thereafter. But so it's amazing what a small act can do for you to get you kind of back engaged and give yourself the opportunity to develop into whatever it is you're trying to do. So yeah, no, it was just such a great experience to that first year, and being around such great players too. It was that also, I think, accelerated the development side too. If you're playing with good players, you're just gonna get the opportunities and just watch and see how they carry themselves and how they take care of themselves off the ice, and the plays they make that you would never think of making, but maybe next time you'll try something. So yeah, very, very fortunate.
Now, what about off the ice? You got to play a little bit with Welly, right? Did you get to hang out with him off the ice? I hear he's a big video game guy and likes to have a lot of beers. That's the rumors we're hearing from everybody.
Yeah, Welly, I think at some point early in his pro career, he turned up the off ice regiment a little bit. I don't know if games were big back in the day. I don't even know what the game console would have been at that time. I was never a big gamer, but there are certainly Welly. I mean, you lead the league when you're 17 years old. Like that's a pretty impressive thing. It doesn't happen very often, and it's usually the phenoms who do it. And I think as a pure hockey player, Kyle Wellwood is an absolute phenom. When I'm asked who's the most memorable guy I've played with on the ice. It's his name's on the top of the list for sure. Yeah, in terms of the off ice stuff, I wouldn't say I followed his off-season training program by any stretch. Unfortunately, I wasn't blessed with the skills he was, so I had to work a little bit harder in the gym than he did. But you know what? I trade ignoring the off-ice stuff at that time for the on-ice learnings I took from him for sure.
So did you? So your first year, did you start out on Wellwood's line come regular season?
I sure did. I think I played the first 3 games that year with him, and if I'm remembering correctly, I might have had 2 assists in the 3 games, or maybe a goal and 2 assists. Anyway, when you're going from midget to the OHL, and not just getting your feet wet in the OHL, you're playing you're playing on the first line against the other team's first line and their top defensemen, and getting all that sort of extra attention. It was a huge adjustment for me, and I know that maybe if I had gone in with a little bit more blind ambition and confidence, I could have held on a little bit longer. But I just needed to develop more. I needed to get faster. I needed my skating to improve. I'll keep going. I had to work on some things just to be able to play at that level. So the experiment lasted, like I said, 3 or 4 games. I think I had a few other opportunities with injuries and the like, the first half of my first year, but ultimately we swapped Welly for Spezza. I can't recall if it was just before Christmas or just after. So then I got to, learn from another, at the time, junior hockey stud. Obviously, Spetz went on to be a 100-point guy in the NHL as well. But it's pretty crazy when I think back and think like I was, 18 months before I was ready to, call it, and then 18 months later, I've played on a line with Kyle Wellwood, and I'm watching Jason Spezza score 8 points in 2 different games. It's pretty cool to look back on, and obviously I had some luck along the way to get there.
I got one here, bro.
I know what you're gonna ask.
This is kind of like a 2-part night. So
okay.
When the Spezza deal goes down, like, are you guys just like, what are the guys in the room kind of thinking when that goes down? And did you guys kind of see it coming? Like, was there any signs that trade might happen?
There's always rumors flying around. Welly had been battling some injuries, and that year we had the Renzi Robinson staging line, which was untouchable in terms of opponents being able to stop them. But it was, from my recollection, it was challenging to find the right combination for guys for Welly to play with. And I mean, you got to think a guy like that was just playing with, I believe Rowe scored 60 some odd goals the year before.
64, I think it was. Randy, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard to replace a guy like that. And then when your kind of next top 3 offensive weapons or have such good chemistry like the Stage and Renzi Robinson line did, you don't want to break them up either. And then Windsor, I believe, was looking to move Spezza, and there might have been rumors around that too. And then Jim Halton had coached Spezza in Mississauga, so there were some reasons for the rumors to be there. But when it happened, it's obviously a surprise, and it was sad for me to watch Welly go. Like I would just love watching Welly play on the ice. Like I can remember one optional skate we had a we would play 4-on-4 for 45 minutes, and the guy must have scored 25 goals in 45. Like I'm not even exaggerating. He was scoring 2 times every time he went back on the ice. It was insane. But
so would you say you liked him better than Spezza, like overall back then, obviously?
Well, as players, I think that. Yeah, I mean, you're splitting hairs. Like,
yeah,
They could both go out there and get 2 points a game easily. I think Spezza ended up with 2 points a game for that year. Welly would have been close, but again, he had some injuries. No, I wouldn't say one over the other. Welly was really good at certain things. Spezza is just so big. He had a long stick. He could do things with the puck that, no one else in the league could do, and not many others in general could do. It just, unfortunately I got to be a healthy scratch a bunch of times later in the year. So I had a front row seat literally for the Spezza show. You can either sulk and do your own thing in the stands, or you can watch and learn from, at the time, the best junior hockey player in Canada. So I chose the latter, and you can't pick one. And they were both so entertaining too. If you're a hockey fan, watching those guys in their prime junior days was something special.
Well, we both had season tickets, back then, and we've talked about this before. I don't remember who was on, but maybe it was Silverstone. But that one night, Spezza, I think, had 8 points in Belleville, and it was just like, what? 8 points? That's the best performance I had seen. And, of course, Wellwood, the few years before that with Belleville, was just, like you say, you watch them, and there's so many moves that you're like, only certain guys can pull that off. It's your top-tier guys, right? It's, it's even in the NHL, you're thinking you're McKinnon, you're Matthews, that, like, the top end guys, only those guys are pulling them off, right? So it's definitely got to be fun. And like you say, you probably learned a ton from them, right?
100%. They both had really good vision. I would give the vision hat tip to Welly. That guy could just find people through 6 sets of legs that, guy probably wasn't even expecting the puck, because he didn't think anyone would ever pass it to him from there. His vision was just phenomenal, and Spezza, when Spezza was in stride, or if he had full control of the puck, it's basically too late. He's gonna get around. You can't play Spezza one-on-one. So, and he turned around a month later after that 8-point game at home, and he got 8 more points against Sarnia. So he had 2 8-point games in the same calendar month, which isn't bad.
In the same month. That's insane.
Yeah.
No, was his 8-point game in Belleville? Was that his first game in Belleville? Do you remember that?
It
was either his first or second, right?
Yeah.
It was early. It was a pretty nice, like, hey, welcome to Belleville.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about, like, guy? You mentioned them quickly, and I think you actually lived with one in Belleville, right? Matt Stajan, if I'm right, and obviously Renzi and Robinson. That was a dominant line. What was it like watching them as well?
My first OHL game, Renzi and Robinson each had 6 points, and I think they scored 2 or 3 shorthanded goals between them. They were incredible. Like, I believe, from the stories, they basically played together the 4 years, right? So you build some pretty key chemistry by spending that much time. But they had such a complementary sort of skill set. Like, Robinson could basically do anything he wanted. He was the fastest guy on the ice most nights, but he was also highly skilled. Renzi was a little bit more in your face, kind of didn't mind getting under the opponent's skin, but still extremely skilled, and scored some ridiculous goals that year. I bet they both finished 1-2 in scoring from my recollection. I think Spezza was third, actually. I don't know how many times you get the top 3 scorers on the same team, but
the crazy thing about that is Chris Newberry was 4th that year, and he played on their line when they were rookies. So
is that true? I didn't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
That's right. That actually, I remember that. But and then I mean, like, Stage, you can tell why Renzi and Robinson weren't willing to part ways with Stage and let him go to the second line. Not that it wasn't Jim Halton's decision, but Stage is just one of those guys who is just incredibly easy to play with. I did get the opportunity to play on a line with him a few times the 2 years we played together, and he's a very, very cerebral player. You just want to play with a guy like that, because he's always in the right spots. He gets you the puck when you don't expect it to come. He's just very good, and he's very smart out there. But yeah, Matt and I are much closer in age than I was with Renzi and Robinson, but so we did become friends. He still lives out here in Calgary, where I'm at now. So we keep in touch. He's coaching with the Hitmen this year as an assistant. So he's kind of he took a couple years to figure out what he wanted to do after his pro career ended. But yeah, you can't say enough about Stage either, on the ice and off of it. Like he's pretty much how you would want any NHL player to be when it comes to no ego, time for everybody, just a genuine person. Yeah, nothing but good things to say about him either.
1,000 games in the NHL, I believe, too, right? He hit that in Calgary, I think.
Yeah,
he sure did. I went to the 1,000-game party. It was awesome.
Just such like a quiet leader, just a guy you could tell was confident, but just never flashy or never showy. But so yeah, can we talk about some of the louder guys in the team? Like who were characters in the room back then? I assume Renzi was one of them. We had him on, but what about guys like Silver, McCormick? How was that dressing room? Was just seems like a bunch of wild guys.
I think they called themselves the Dog Pound line. It was Silverstone, McCormick, and Paymont.
Yeah.
Huddy was Malcolm Hutt was part of that crew too. But no, those guys were awesome. Look, I was a very naive rookie moving away from home, moving from Ottawa to Belleville. Those guys were great, taking us young guys under their wing. Silver, yeah, he's you guys, it sounds like you guys had him on the show. Like he's a talker for sure. He
was entertaining.
He is a personality for sure. Unfortunately, I've lost touch with a few of those guys. I still chat with Cody McCormick here and there, but yeah, those guys are full of stories, and like all three of them are just wicked guys. But you better come prepared if you're going to hang out with them, because there's going to be a story that's going to be made. I
remember McCormick being tough too. Like I remember seeing him. He played for Colorado, right? And being in a couple big scraps there. Like
he was tough as nails. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he wasn't afraid of anybody. He wasn't afraid of anybody.
I was afraid of him. If that means anything. Yeah, that first year he was only a year older than me, but it felt like he was 10 years older than me.
One of those guys, I know what you mean. Like you come in and just like, okay, yeah. That's the 20-year-old? No, he's 17. Oh, okay.
Yeah. You do not. You don't want to get on Macker's bad side, but yeah, no. Fortunately, I got to be really good friends with him as well, and yeah, he is a natural born leader. There's no doubt about that.
Just kind of like a funny, just one memory I always had from the Bulls was with McCormick, and they were playing Erie one time, and a huge guy tries to fight McCormick like right off the face-off, and like it was back in the days where you take your helmets off, right? So they take their helmets off, and the guy's literally laughing at McCormick when they're like going to square up because they're so far apart, and McCormick teed off on that guy like 100 times, and he was just a bloody mess coming off the ice, and just. I remember the guy was so mad leaving, but that's just one of the memories I have about the Bulls. Just I don't know why it sticks out for me.
Well, I can see why it would. Macker beat up a few guys in the couple of years I played with him, so I can't recall that specific fight. I feel like Erie did have one well-known sort of heavyweight on their team those first couple of years, but yeah, that's just par for the course for Macker. If he's either going to win the fight, he's never going to lose the fight. He's going to be in there. He's not letting go. He's not backing down from anybody. So and his development when Spezza was traded, and then the following year when he was playing with Stage and Paymont. The offensive side of his game really blossomed, and you could really see what he could do. So yeah, just again, nothing but good things to say about Macker either.
Now moving forward, the next couple of years in the Bulls, it seemed like you were the leader, right? And I think it was your fourth year, your last year, you were the captain, right? What was it like for the transition from coming in, seeing all these big names, Wellwood, Spezza, we just named them all, we talked about them all, but seeing all them, and then all of a sudden it transitions, they're kind of going out, they're too old now, and you're the first liner, you're the leading goal scorer, you're the captain. What was it like for, that's got to be a big difference, right? You got to feel pretty proud of yourself at the same time.
Proud of yourself for putting yourself in the opportunity to be in that position, I would say. Do I wish we had more success those last 2 years? Certainly that would have meant a lot more. I would also add that Andrew Brown was the captain my third year, and certainly the undisputed leader of our team that year. What a great guy he is. Going from never dreaming of playing in the OHL to ultimately, being in a position where you can wear the C for your OHL team, like that was obviously not something that was ever on the dream list. That was over and above for sure. So it was an incredible honor for me. And we had a really young team that year. Well, I guess both the third and fourth year, but my fourth year in particular, obviously the team was going through a transition period with ownership changes and coaching changes and management changes. So it was a big sort of shift from my first 2 years, where first year, arguably on paper, we certainly had the best offensive team on paper, just fell a little bit short against Barrie in the second round, to a young, energetic group of guys, some really great young players. Obviously Matt Bolesky that year. John Hughes was first overall, but we had a number of really good players. Matt Kelly, who signed as a free agent the year before. He showed up with some Canadian Tire hockey sticks. It was the ugliest stick I've ever seen. The blade was like 6 inches high. I was just, what is this guy doing? And then he blossomed into an absolutely fantastic defenseman of all things. So we had some really good players those years. I like to think I at least got to play a part in that team getting better and better, and ultimately making it to the OHL finals a couple of years later. But yeah, I mean, it's just such a different thing, right? Like, you walk in on day one, you're bright-eyed, you're looking at these world junior players, these leading scorers, these second overall NHL draft picks, and then you fast forward 4 years later, and you're kind of looking down and at the young guys, and wondering which one of them is going to be the next Belleville Bulls superstar, or the next guy to jump into the NHL and make a difference there. And we had a few players from that group that did just that. So it's just kind of two sides of the coin, right? The difference between being on a 17-year-old on a really good contending team, and a 20-year-old on a team that's kind of into phase 2 of its rebuild.
Now, I got to ask you, because I one of them I grew up playing against a lot, and the other one I actually took his wife as my grade 8 prom date. So that's Matt Bolesky, and Johnny Hughes was first overall. Johnny Hughes was first overall. Simple reason, they beat us, and that there was a game where we both lost out second round. We played each other. We're up 2-0 or 3-0, and he come back and he got 5 points. They went on, and then they went on to win a couple tournaments after that, the provincials and all that. And he goes first overall that year. So it was holy, but he was good. What were your thoughts on a guy like that, Johnny Hughes? Because he was, when I know, growing up, obviously he was only 16 at the time, but he had so much skill. When you talked about Wellwood, he was making plays and passes. I remember Hughesy was like that, right? And obviously maybe not as much as a 16-year-old in the OHL, but could you see that out of him? Or?
Oh yeah, Hughesy was incredibly talented, incredible vision. Obviously, as a 16-year-old coming in, he weighed, 150 pounds soaking wet. He was smaller. So even just meeting him off the ice, you had to figure, it's okay, well, this guy's, he's not going to go out there and bang guys around and, necessarily score in his first year all those gritty goals. So I guess I made some assumptions that he was probably a pretty skilled guy. And by the time we got on the ice together, that was obviously the case. You know, he and I actually played quite a bit together his first year, my last. So I got to know him really well. There were some times, and I think back, like, you know, he would do Welly-like things or Spezza-like things. He's a first overall pick for a reason. But like, whereas when I would watch Welly do it, I'd just be like, oh my gosh, that was insane. Whereas if it was Hughesy, I was, you know, 20, he was 16, I can come off and be like, what the heck was that? Like, where did that come from? Like, you could actually just have a conversation about what just happened on the ice. And yeah, no, he was a special player for sure. I can actually remember a few times he and I connected on some positive plays, like still have them in my head. So yeah, really enjoyed playing with him. And then Matt Bolesky, the only 16-year-old I've ever heard of or seen that was part of the leadership group, you know, within a couple of months of being on a team as a 16-year-old. So
wow, I didn't know that. That's crazy. 16.
He was 16. He was a natural leader too, and he was just strong. I think he had the hardest shot on our team as a 16-year-old. Just a really good teammate. Like, just you knew the sky was the limit for him. Like, he was there. There was very little question in any of us older guys' minds that he was gonna, you know, have a shot at playing in the NHL. And obviously he had a really good career doing that. I've got a lot of time for Matt Bolesky. He's an awesome guy. He was one of my favorite guys that last year.
Just a quick story. This is the year after, so they were 17-year-olds. We were out partying with them on New Year's Eve. It wasn't too late, but, you know, they're out till probably 2 o'clock in the morning. And you guys played, I think, an afternoon game. Now, you were gone by then, but next year. And we're thinking, like, oh, these guys are going to play shit. You know, the next day they're out partying with us. You know, I know how I felt. They go out and they win like 5-3 and each get 4 points. Hughesy and Bolesky. And we were like, I remember looking at my buddy Hockey, coach's picture now. We're like, are you kidding me right now? Like, those two were that good, right? And obviously, Johnny didn't make the NHL and probably do as well as he'd like, but he's still, I think he was I don't know if he still is. He was in Germany and Austria doing really well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like being like the Wayne Gretzky type of player over there, right? So I think he had a really good career outside the NHL. And Matt, obviously, he made a lot of money and played a lot of years in the NHL as well. So they both did pretty well.
Yeah, not surprised at all. Hughesy's game is very conducive to the European game. I certainly recall noticing his name at the top of a lot of league scoring races when I was, I guess, paying a little bit more attention to that stuff with 2 kids these days. I don't spend the same time on Hockey DB I used to, but yeah, I mean, they're completely different players, obviously. It doesn't surprise me, I guess, that they were, you know, out a little later than they should have been the day before a game. But hey, you play guilty hockey sometimes, and sometimes you can you make up for it, and you get 4 points in a 5-3 win. So yeah, that story is great. Doesn't surprise me.
One more guy I want to ask just before Fleming, because we're on the topic of this. Sean Matthias. Now he was kind of he come in. I think he was a 16-year-old as well, and like a 6th or 7th round pick. Probably only played like half the games. Could you see potential in him? I know I did watching. I remember going to a lot of games that year because I played Major Midget, played against a lot of these guys. But I know a lot of fans were like, oh, who's this guy? You know, he's no good. And I was like, no, this kid's 16. He's big body. And obviously he played in the NHL as well. Could you see that in him?
Yeah. He had all the tools. And I guess he reminded me of a better version of myself at that age, and obviously a little bit bigger. But you could tell that when the coordination was going to catch up to the growth spurt, and he was going to fill out a little bit, he had the brains to do it, and he had the skill set, and obviously the size, and it was just a matter of kind of putting the 3 things together. I think he took off pretty good after like his second year. Well, yeah, that would have been his draft year. Like I recall him having a really good year then. I mean, you try to keep up with the with the boys from the old squad once you've moved on to university hockey. It's not the same as watching it every day and watching him develop day over day, but no surprises at all. He was sort of that guy that, you know, if if he could put it together, it was gonna happen for him, and was certainly really happy to see him have the success he had.
Yeah, I kind of had one about your career in Belleville. So, what was the one highlight for your career in Belleville in terms of like scoring a goal, or what was the best play you think you made? Is there a memory that kind of sticks out for you?
Well, honestly, the first memory I always have is just that first shift, first day of training camp with Welly making fun of me on the bench for not scoring. But no, geez. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Since we're on the topic of Hughesy, we were playing in Sarnia, and we were down 2-0 late in the second period, and Hughesy and I came in on a 2-on-1, and I had the puck, so I'm a lefty. I cut to the middle. Hughesy just kind of went straight down the pipe. For some reason, the 2D stood up on me, so I just kind of flicked it between them, and Hughesy was on a breakaway and scored a goal. It was his first goal in the OHL, if I recall correctly. So we were down 2-1. Fast forward to late in the third. I end up scoring the tying goal with about 30 seconds left. So we go to overtime, and Hughesy and I are out there together, and he takes the puck around the net on his backhand, and he drags both D with him, and I just kind of pop out from behind the net on the back door, and he no-look backhand saucers it, lands perfectly on my stick for just a little shovel into the open net for the OT win after being down 2-0 on the road. That was a big game for us. Obviously, it was fun to be a part of his first goal, and then him return the favor in spades by setting me up for the OT winner. That was a fun game. But you know what? I played 200 and some odd games. There was there was a lot of great memories. I mean, they usually didn't involve me. It was usually watching some of those big names that we've been talking about here do something absolutely ridiculous on the ice, and you'd feel bad for the guy on the other team who was the victim. Yeah, a lot of good memories. Just so many good relationships. It's hard to isolate one play or one game. I'm sure that'd be different if my first year had ended with us winning it all, but fortunately, short of that, there's just a really nice mix of great memories.
Yeah. What was the feeling like? Because you guys were obviously like real serious contenders your first year, right? So like, how hard was it to take that loss in the second round? Like, did you really appreciate, what kind of magnitude the loss was? Like, obviously it's probably bigger for the older guys, but did you feel that as well?
I did. I think it was very eye-opening for me being in that locker room, and we lost in overtime too to end it to Barrie, and I was on the ice for that goal, which is good and bad. It's good because I'd been a healthy scratch most of the second half of the season, but was still allowed to. I had climbed back into the good books with Jimmy, and I was playing more during the playoffs, but unfortunately I was on the ice for that game winner, and you always think about what could have been, what you should have done differently on this play, and I still have regrets about that play, but I think that's normal. What really opened my eyes though was in that dressing room, looking around and seeing Rizzo and Nate, having played their last game, tears coming down their faces, and it was the first time like that season end really was real, because like growing up playing minor hockey, you don't really fully appreciate that, the next year you're probably going to be back with 90% of the same team, and it's just kind of like, oh, I'll see you, we'll hang out during the summer, I'll see you in September, guys. But that was kind of it for those guys, and I think that's where it really hit home for me. It was tough. We were built to do very well that year, and to bow out when we did really sucked. It still stings, even though I was more of a passenger than a driver that year. I think we had Jason Spezza, who's obviously a great NHLer. Cody McCormick had a great NHL career. Stage, great NHL career. David Clarkson was on our fourth line with me, 35 goals in the O1 year. Andre DeVoe played 35 goals for New Jersey one year. Andre DeVoe played in the NHL. Like, we had a lot of really good players. Like Ryan Carnegie, our first rounder that year, was a fantastic young player, great goal scorer. I'm missing some. You think back at that team and you wonder, like, how did we even how did we put ourselves in a position not to do a little bit better? But hey, Barrie was built for the playoffs. They had 6 absolute stud, terrifying defensemen, and they were really hard to play against, and their goalie was fantastic. So kind of one of those coin flip series that could have gone either way. Unfortunately, it didn't go ours.
Was it Sheldon Keefe on that Barrie team too?
No, it was a couple years after. That was, I mean, you're really testing my memory here, but Eric Reitz was the captain. I think it was Jeremy Swanson was just a young defenseman on that team. I think it was Aaron Power, Tyler Handchuk, I think was his name. Anyway, they had 6 really good defensemen. Their bottom pair could have been a top pair on a lot of teams that year. And then David Chant was the goalie, who I actually ended up playing with at St. Mary's a few years later. So it was tough. It's still tough. Obviously, those losses, they numb a bit over time, but you never fully get over them. And man, we had the top 3 scorers in the league that year. So, it's unfortunate it ended the way it did.
Yeah, for sure. And just one more question on that year. You guys were like steaming hot at the end of the year too, right? Like, because I think Mole, when he came in, it was 20-4 once he came over. So, I mean, you guys really picked up down the second half and had a ton of momentum, right?
Yeah, Molesey stood on his head. Like, he was a top goalie in the league for sure that year. I certainly, I didn't mean to miss his name. He was a big part of our team that year and the success we had. We were good. We were hot down the stretch. We had home ice for that series against Barrie. I think if we had played St. Mike's, we must have finished second in the conference that year. I don't believe we would have had home ice for the final series, but regardless, when your second line centerman is putting up 8-point games, you usually have a pretty good team.
Second line. That's funny though, second line center, but I mean, that was the truth. It actually was, which is insane, because it's just like, you got 2 top first lines, right? They in the league probably. And but like you say, we've talked about this before, and it's nothing against Molesey, but goaltending, right? And it was just, the other guy was just a stud, and you make the saves, and you got really good defensemen. And it's funny, there's one team in Ontario that just seems they need a couple more D to get past that first round, and we'll maybe get into something like that in a bit. But you did talk about going to university, and you had a lot of success, it seems, there, put a lot of points up, and we're there for 5 years and the captain there. So maybe you could talk about that for a little bit. What was it like to go there?
Yeah, it was great. We haven't talked about Cogs yet, but Matt Coughlin was my captain my first year, and he had spent 3 or 4 years at St. Mary's. We didn't actually get to play together at St. Mary's, but he was a big part of getting me to go out there for a recruit trip. I got a lot of family on the East Coast, so the East Coast was kind of where I figured I would end up. I just wasn't sure where. So I was looking at a few different schools out there, but the guys at St. Mary's were awesome, very welcoming, and Cogs was a big part of that. But yeah, it was a fantastic experience. It was kind of, I won't say we went through a rebuild there per se, but our team sort of slowly got better and better over the years while I was there. Got to play with some great players my first couple of years for sure. We had a really good recruit year. My third year, Cody Thornton would have been one of the names. So I played 3 years junior with Cody, 3 years at school with Cody, and 1 year in Europe with Cody. So he's actually, I've never played more seasons with a teammate before than Cody, who does remain a very good friend of mine and stood in my wedding and all that good stuff. So I had to give him a shout out there. But no, we had a really good team. probably my last 3 years there. I would say the best team on paper that we had would have been my 4th year. I think our power play ran at like high 30%. We were very good. Unfortunately, we kind of let it get to our head. We won our conference, and then we went to nationals that year as the first or second ranked team in the country. I can't recall if it was us or you at University of Alberta, but it was a weird format. The nationals was a weird format at that time, in that there were 6 teams, 3 per division, and so you'd play the 2 teams in your division, and basically whoever was in first place out of the divisions went straight to the final. And so we won our first game relatively handily. I think it was 5-2 or something. And we were playing the University of Western in our last game. And on paper, we felt quite confident in our chances to win. But unfortunately, you got to play the game. And we went into that game having to only lose. We could lose that game by 3 and still be the team that goes to the finals. And so late in the second period, it's 2-2. We score, and the goal gets disallowed. And it's kind of like, at the time, we were kind of like, oh, whatever, it's still 2-2. We're still fine. Going to intermission, everything's no one's panicking. It's all kind of like, all right, they can score 2 goals and we're still fine. They came out, and like, literally it felt like just wave after wave was hitting us. And it wasn't that we were necessarily getting that outplayed, but everything they did went in the net. They scored 5 unanswered goals. So we lost 7-2, and that was our season. And of course, they turned around and lost to the team that we beat in our conference final, UNB. It was a very good team. So that one still stings. Fortunately, we got Canadian University. You can play 5 years, and I had an opportunity to stick around and do my MBA, and so kept playing with most of the same guys. We obviously graduated some key players the year we lost there, but we lucked out. We got a mulligan and got to go back to nationals, and this time we played U of A in the final and ended up beating them in double overtime. So my last university game was a double overtime win to win the national championship. So it was
a round of applause right there. That's honestly something special, and I know Mosey talked about that too, because they had won. I think was it?
Yeah.
And he said at the time, I think it was the trainer who said, "Oh, this is the greatest thing, better than the Memorial Cup or something like that." And he didn't appreciate it. He was like, what? This is just university. He says, now I look back at it and I'm like, wow, that actually was really special to win, right? So, you got to think like that's the Canadian championship, right? So a lot of good hockey players playing university.
Some really good hockey players playing. Actually, U of A, their first line centerman that year was the year we beat them was Derek Ryan, who played for Calgary for a long time, Carolina, now playing for Edmonton. He's kind of the poster child of CIS, or now U Sport hockey, because he's had such a great career after that. He went over like Hughes and lit up some of the European leagues before getting the call to join Carolina. So he's obviously done great. It's really good hockey. It does. I do think it gets a little bit forgotten. There's not as much marketing dollars, and at the end of the day, there's less of that superstar attraction that you would have from major junior. But the hockey itself is always very high quality, and there's some really good players. And with the focus on education being that much more these days, you get a lot more guys who are willing to go from junior straight to university, get that sorted out, taken care of, get your degree, and then go take a shot at the pro route. So you're getting that much better of a talent pool coming out of major junior and going to university. So that league's only getting better.
Yeah. The thing I find weird about that league, is it about this question or?
Yeah. I just kind of want to talk about the goal. So you seem to have like a very analytical mind. So do you remember how the double overtime goal happened? Like, do you remember the play and who scored the goal for you guys?
Oh, I remember the play. We had a few injuries at that point. So we were light on bodies, and I can remember I was on the ice, and it was an offensive zone shift. We were cycle, and I could just remember thinking to myself, like, if I have to skate back to our end, they are going to score, because like I could barely stand. So tired. And I was behind the net, and our D sort of wrapped it around to me, and I skated towards the front of the net and just kind of went back the other way and just kind of threw it on net. And Bradley Smith, PEI guy, was on the doorstep and just kind of poked it over the goalie's pad on the rebound, and yeah, all hell broke loose. But yeah, I can remember when that initial, obviously, joy kind of wore off, just like needing 3 minutes to like catch my breath, because it was just you're already bagged from the shift, and then you screaming and celebrating and jumping for a minute. I can't believe I didn't lose consciousness. I was struggling.
I like that. So what was the party like that night after that win?
Oh, it's great. I mean, we were in Thunder Bay. Thunder Bay was hosting that year. That was a unique team. We actually had Mike Danton join us halfway through the year year, which was a great story in and of itself. But so we had quite the mix of players. But like university, I mean, it's similar to junior, except you're just kind of that much more mature, I guess. Not that you're extremely mature at 23, 24, 25, but we were really a close group. So it was really fun to, celebrate that win, especially after the way we lost the year before. I think that's kind of what felt most, there's some gimmicky stuff, like, you get the playoff beards and stuff when your team's going through the playoffs. Well, we did that the year before, but then the next year it was a whole different mentality, and everybody was clean shaven. And whenever we got asked the question, it was like, we're not here for fun. This is a business trip, and we want to look the part. So we're up here to redeem ourselves. So it was just a different mentality. But anyway, it was that night was unbelievable. My parents were up. They made the trek up from Ottawa, so they got to come on the ice after and hold the trophy and do all the pictures and all that stuff. It was unbelievable.
That's great. Yeah, and you were the captain that year, correct?
I was. Yeah, I was the captain both years, but we don't have to talk about that the first one there.
Yeah. So, what was it like when you got to lift the trophy?
So it was the game was on Sportsnet, and I don't remember saying this, but we have video. One of the guys put a video together for us just for that final game, all the highlights, and then you can actually hear me saying, as I'm about to lift the trophy, to the other captains, like, this is hands down the best moment of my life, kind of thing. And then it's just like, crazy. I don't remember saying that, but it pretty much until you have kids and get married and all that good stuff, it certainly was in a league of its own for memories for me. So yeah, pretty special.
Love it.
We'll have to dig that up. Maybe it's on YouTube or something. The goal. Is it? It must be. If it was on TV, I'm sure there's a clip of it. So we'll have to do that, Fleming. But I love to hear that, when you win, and anybody that's won something, even if it's smaller, right, you know how it feels. And, it's like you're the top of the world, and you can't, I don't know. I won a ball hockey championship once, and it was Worlds, but I mean, it's ball hockey. But still, it was that feeling like, you feel like you're the world boxing champion. You know what I mean? Like you're at that high horse for that day, and it's pretty special. So I love hearing the stories about it. And but I'm glad that you came back that next year, right? It's always a positive story where you lose. Sometimes you get back on your horse and you try it again. And I love the business side of it too, because the playoff beards and the hair dye and everything are fun. But I love that, like, why aren't you guys doing anything? Nope, we're here for business only, right? So it's kind of neat, a neat thing on its own.
Yeah.
But then you end up going to play some pro hockey over in Europe and a little bit in the East Coast as well.
Yes, yes, and don't sell yourself short. The ball hockey is very intense, and winning worlds quite the accomplishment. So congrats. Um, yeah, Germany. So again, Cody Thornton and I played 3 years Belleville, 3 years St. Mary's. He was graduating after 3 years, so the two of us were graduating at the same time, and we are like, hey, we should go play somewhere together. Ended up landing a spot in the second league in Germany. I really loved my experience in Germany. Cody loved it so much that he stayed for 6 years. I'm pretty sure by the end of it, he could have ran for mayor of the little town of Landshut, about 45 minutes north of Munich. Yeah, it was great. I mean, and everybody's got their sob story, so I'm not gonna dwell on it. I didn't perform at the level that I would have expected myself or wanted to perform that year. There was an injury, there was some other stuff going on, but like it was me just, you sometimes when you get into a funk, it's hard to just kind of reset and get out of it. I tried everything to kind of get the confidence back or what have you, but it just wasn't happening for me that year, and it was unfortunate. So played out the season though, and certainly made some great friends along the way, and loved Germany. But then Ryan Rohrbeck, who's also a former Bull, he and I were roommates for several years at St. Mary's, and pretty close friends. So when he was graduating, he wanted to go. He had heard that Boise, Idaho, was a great place to play. And I said, sure, let's do it. Like wherever you want. At this point, I was kind of like, I've probably got one more year like this left in me. Unfortunately, after 3 days of being in Boise, and I make fun of him for this all the time, so I don't have to hold back. He decided it wasn't for him, and he drove home. He went back to Oshawa. So it was just me now in Boise, Idaho, having come from living 45 minutes north of Oktoberfest. So it was a bit of a culture shock for me, but it was great. I mean, started the year on a line with the top right winger from U of A from the year we had beat them in the finals. So hockey's a small world. You kind of end up crossing paths again. Unfortunately, that first game, I took a puck in the face, broke my jaw, and then later, that was my first ever shift in the East Coast Hockey League. I broke my jaw, but I didn't know it was broken yet. And then the first shift of the second game, or of the second period, sorry, I took an awkward hit and ended up separating my shoulder. So at least that got me out of the game, so I didn't have to play with a broken jaw anymore, because it was quite painful. So I was out for about 6 weeks. Had to get the jaw wired shut. Lost a ton of weight, and then came back to a different role. The team had grown up since I was on that first line with Chad Clausen was his name, and team looked a little bit differently. And the role that was left for me was third line left winger. And I said, well, I can either embrace it and do what I can, or leave. So I chose to embrace it, and became actually really good friends with my two line mates, and we were a solid third line. Ended up playing 10 or 15 games, I'm gonna say, in Boise, and then my shoulder went out again. So that was kind of like, oh man, this is starting to
can't get a bounce.
Yeah. And then anyway, a friend of mine was playing in Austria as I was just healing from my second shoulder injury, and he said, hey, one of our import players just got their Austrian passport, so we can take on a new import. Do you want to come over? And I was like, absolutely. That sounds like a great way to finish off the hockey career and call it a day, going and living in the Swiss Alps. So that's what I did. Played for a month and a half, 2 months in Austria with a good buddy, and then a great group of guys there as well. And then that was it. the itch had been scratched. Let's just say.
You knew at the end of that season, I'm not even going to try and come back and, go back to Austria even for another year or two, or?
No, it was, look, like, I think you can always sort of tell when somebody is wired to be a hockey player. I used to have this conversation with my university coach, and he's a second dad to me. He's one of my very good friends. He would just say, like, there's certain times you just know when somebody is meant to do something, or if they have visions on something else. And he's like, when I look at you and Cody Thornton, he's like, Cody he's got the drive. He's got what he wants. He wants to be that. He wants to make a career of this. He's like, I don't know. You might, but you also might not. And that's just how I felt at the end. I mean, obviously, you get some bad luck, you get some bad injuries, you don't play to where you think you are capable of. It disheartens you a little bit. And I wouldn't say that I was, upset about hanging him up. I had gone to school for 5 years. I knew this wasn't a forever thing. I was dating my girlfriend, now wife, was in Calgary. And I couldn't expect her to follow me around that much longer, making, second league Austria, East Coast Hockey League, or second league Germany money. It's not going to, set us up for a future unless you make it to that next level. So yeah, I don't really have any regrets. Like it was a blast. Had some amazing experiences. Germany was amazing. Boise was amazing for its own, for different reasons. And getting to wrap up in Austria was really cool. So there should be no one feeling bad for me. I had a pretty good ride.
Did you get to do any crazy tours or like traveling or anything when you're over in Germany and Austria?
Yeah, well, we did Oktoberfest twice because it was really close. Our team took a team trip to Prague for a weekend. The German team. That was a blast. One of the guys happened to be Czech, so he knew all the spots, the restaurants, kind of took care of the whole weekend. It was amazing. And then day trips, right? Like everything's so close. You can kind of go anywhere. We did Vienna, we did Salzburg, we did Innsbruck. Did some a little bit of skiing after the Austrian season ended. My buddy and I on the Austrian team, we went and did Italy, went to Lake Como, went to Nice in France. So yeah, we took
quite a bit for that small period of time, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything is 5 hours away.
Yeah, it's not like Canada.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we definitely took advantage of it. It was a phenomenal experience, and what a great chance to live in another country and just kind of see how the culture works over there, and yeah, the German guys and the Austrian guys on the two teams were awesome. So yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. I got one, bro. One guy I did want to touch on. You brought his name a bit. Is Cody Thornton. So you played him quite a bit. Have you ever seen such a little guy just willing to take such big runs at guys? That's just what I remember about Cody Thornton is he was just a little wrecking ball out there. He was just going after everyone. So can you kind of talk about him and his intensity a little bit?
He is the most technically sound body checker I have ever seen. There's no other way. When he showed up as a 16-year-old, he weighed 125 pounds, and I don't think I'm exaggerating. It might have been 135, and he was blowing the helmet off of guys that weighed 210 pounds, which just doesn't actually make sense unless you're really good at body checking. Cody's amazing, amazing guy, amazing friend, and fantastic hockey player. But there's nobody. I've never played with anybody that hits like Cody. We used to have a play because we played together for the 3 years at St. Mary's. We would have a play if we were not playing well, where I would get the puck across the red line and do a high dump. And the goal was to get it as close to kind of the sanction where the glass hits the boards. So it would kind of sit up there and bounce a little bit. And then he was just amazing at timing it, and he would just come in and blow these poor defensemen up. Like, and it would get the whole bench going. Everybody was then into the game. It was usually the turning point. We must have done it a dozen times. And it was just kind of like, when you play with a guy that long, you just kind of look over. You both know you're not playing well. Kind of like, okay, let's do the play. High dump over. But yeah, I've also seen him throw like the most amazing hip checks, like old school 80s hockey hip checks where the guy does like the full
On Jerry Rock'em Sock'em.
Oh, like
that's where I always remember those from.
Don would be drooling over some of these hits. Like Cody, don't get me wrong, he's a incredibly gifted offensive hockey player, but no one throws their body around more efficiently than Cody does.
Yeah, that's one thing. I just remember that little wrecking ball out there in Belleville. He would just be hitting 3 200-pound guys a line. Like, he would just nuts some nights. I just remember.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. How can a guy 135 pounds absolutely train wreck a guy who weighs over 200? I still can't figure it out.
One thing I wanted to ask you. So you're born and raised in Ottawa. What team did you cheer for? Were you a Sens fan growing up?
As of 1992, yes, I certainly was. The Sens are my team. Yep.
That's a high five, by the way.
Good choice. Actually, we talked about David Silverstone. He's about as big of a Leaf fan as I came across in my hockey career. So we would have it out for everyone for those battles of Ontario games. But yeah. Unfortunately, this year, last year, the year before, I think the one before that too, haven't really been our year. Yeah, it's been tough, but
since Jason Spezza left.
Since that was a big part of it. But I'm out in Calgary now, so I do have a second team, and if Calgary's doing well, this city's a lot of fun to be around. So I do cheer for Calgary, I will say, as a second team, but certainly when Ottawa's in town, I'm cheering for the hometown for sure.
It is 4-1 for Ottawa right now over Carolina. I just thought I'd let you guys know. I just got the update. So
there goes that $10 for you, Brokey.
Fleming's a big Leaf fan. He's all talk, but they haven't won a playoff series in 18 years, Mark? Something like that. We almost made the Cup final a few years ago. So
that's the best math you've done the last 33 years. So
I think Ottawa, though, watch out the next 5 years. I know I've said it. They got a young team with a lot of young studs, and like you say, it sometimes takes time just to get to that through a transition, maybe a little longer than they planned. But once they get there, right, it's kind of like what you talked about with Belleville. You were part of that, and then unfortunately you were gone. But I think they made 2 Memorial Cups, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but same thing, right? Like, I think Ottawa's going to be there, so it's just going to be. I don't know what Toronto. They're in that. What do you think about Toronto? I know we know where Ottawa's at. What do you think about Toronto? You think they finally win a playoff series this year?
Come on, Mark. It's a big question.
Like, it's really hard for me to say this, but like Toronto, like I will never like the Toronto Maple Leafs as a fan, but I like a lot of their players. Like, they have some really good, entertaining players, and it's hard to argue that those guys aren't really good. I don't know. Like, we don't get the Leaf games out here. If I'm watching hockey, it's the Flames or the Oilers. But from what I have seen and what I've heard, I think they do need to beef up the back end a little bit to make it to that next level. But the way they're scoring right now, who knows? Maybe they can win the old-fashioned way. But they are an exciting team to watch, as much as it hurts me to say that.
But exciting doesn't win you Stanley Cups, Fleming. So you'll have to wait another 20 years to win a playoff series. Now we'll see what happens. But it's definitely nice to have another Sens fan on here, because there's too many Leaf fans. But
we found the other one.
It's the other one. It's been awesome to have you on, though, and hear your stories. And I like to hear different aspects of it and the players you played with. And it's you kind of got. I feel like you were kind of in between 2 generations of Belleville Bulls, right? You know what I mean? Like 2 eras, maybe. Maybe that's the better word. Do you feel like that kind of thing?
Yeah, maybe I was part of the bridge. The bridge to get from the the 99 team and, the after effects and, the having a contending team for a couple of years thereafter. And like any team, you kind of, especially in junior hockey, you graduate a few key guys and, all of a sudden it's back to the drawing board. And, but yeah, like I certainly would have loved to have had the opportunity to play on one of those OHL championship teams. Timing didn't work out that way, and we weren't able to get it done in the years I was there. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think we can all agree that Belleville is a fantastic junior city, and I'm still pretty shook that the Bulls aren't there anymore. But it was certainly fun to be a part of it and to see the success before and after me. I think it speaks volumes for the organization that was there, and I still don't believe it.
Yeah, it's definitely heartbreaking. Hopefully, in the future, Belleville might get another OHL team back. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 to 10 years. You never know, right? You just never know.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing. It should. It doesn't make any sense for Belleville not to have an OHL team, but we don't have to go there.
We were talking about last time, like all the bars have closed now. Like now that you guys are gone, like they can't stay in business.
They shut down after the Bulls left, eh?
Yeah. I'm sure we were keeping a few of those establishments afloat for a while there.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on tonight, Mark. It's been an awesome time, and best of luck with everything out west, and your family. And I know you got a lot going on for you, so thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, buddy.
No, of course, guys. It was a pleasure to be on, and I will just one final thing. I didn't mention them, but Colin and Liz Rushlow were a huge part of my time in Belleville. So can't thank those guys enough. Still talk to them as regularly as we can. They did an amazing job with billeting Matt Stajan and Malcolm Hutt as well. But I would kick myself if I didn't at least mention their names, because they were such a huge part of my time in Belleville, and really just if they happen to watch this, I just want to say thanks.
You bet. Definitely an awesome family. I know very, very well myself, and you nailed it on the head, buddy. They are great people, so I'm sure they'll listen to it. So thanks, guys, and I know Mark appreciates, and they help bring you on here as well. So thanks to them for getting the apple, I guess, for getting you on the BOOclub podcast.
Absolutely, guys. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, and take care. We'll be in touch. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Marc Rancourt. Mark was you would have listened, but one of the things I found really intriguing was he was a part of almost two types of teams, right? Two what's the word I'm looking for?
He was in a hardcore contender and then went to a rebuild in his latter years, right?
And then, but part of the players that were on his last year ended up being part of a couple Memorial Cup championship teams. So,
yeah,
it was definitely interesting. There's a lot of guys he played with that ended up playing in the NHL. I know you didn't mention him off the start, but Matt Bolesky, Sean Matthias. I mean, we talked about Johnny Hughes. I know he didn't play in the NHL, but he's played a lot of years pro over in Germany and Austria and all that. And then, of course, Matt Stajan. I mean, he was the captain there in Belleville, and then he played 5 years in St. Mary's, won a national championship as the captain. I mean, so he's done pretty good for himself, and even played a few years pro there. So it was fun to have Mark on. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it. I know we did, and we look forward to having more Belleville Bulls in the near future, possibly even next week. But we know that our listeners seem to enjoy the old Belleville Bulls, and we know a lot of people miss them just like us. So we're going to try to keep bringing as many as we can on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So, no, it was a great episode with Mark, but here we go, Brokey. Do you want to get into some sports stories of the week here? So, what do you want to dive in first? Do you want to dive into the Marchand suspension or Marty St. Louis? I'll let you pick.
It doesn't matter to me. Let's do Marty. I got Marty on my back. So I got
Marty
on my back here.
So Martin St. Louis named the interim head coach, the Montreal Canadiens, brought in to replace Dominic Richard. So what do you think of the move, Brokey? Why do you think the interim status? Like, if he's coming in, why doesn't he get the big title right away?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that Montreal's currently paying three guys to head coach their team right now. They're paying Claude Julien, who's actually in the Olympics right now. He's over in China. And then Dominic there just got let go. They're paying him, obviously. He still has 2 more years on his contract. And Marty St. Louis. So, I mean.
And they're probably paying 2 GMs, too.
Oh, yeah. They're definitely paying. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Montreal is a mess right now, and I know there's some friends of ours that are Montreal fans, and it's tough to chirp, but I know Ottawa was in a bit of a dumpster fire a few years ago, and you still chirp me about that, but I think they're out of that now. But they got a lot. Like, Montreal has the biggest. They have the most. They're right at the cap, and they're in last place in the NHL. So I mean, that's a mess right there. Just looking at it, I liked how Marty came in. Just because, he's my guy. I loved his story. I loved it when he played. I loved everything about it. I remember when his mom died and he went out, and I think he scored 2 goals or a hat trick or something crazy like that the next game. And, that one playoff goal. Anyways, I don't want to get into too much about his playing, but I loved it. So when I heard that, I'm like, oh, it's going to be awesome. I can cheer for Montreal a little bit. Obviously root for him. And but then I look and I go, the next couple of years are going to be rough. Like, they're going to be really rough. I mean, I know, like, they got to have Carey Price and stuff, but the only way they're not going to be rough is if they don't do a rebuild. And I don't know what Montreal is going to even approach it right now. Like, they've got so many big contracts, they got to move guys out. When you start doing that, all you're doing is getting rid of good players, and you're only making your team worse. So it doesn't matter who's coaching. I mean, if you don't have the players, it's tough to have success, right? So it's going to be a bit of a shithole for him, I think. I think it's going to be a challenge, but if he can get his name out there, who knows? We'll see what happens with it.
I think Montreal's next 3 years are going to be completely go off what happens in this upcoming draft, because right now they're on pace for the first overall pick. If they get the first overall pick and they get Shane Wright, that's rebuild accelerated right there, right off the bat. So, I mean, once you find that first line center, I mean, it's you can pick it up. So if they do win the draft lottery and they get last place and they come into the league, if they get Shane Wright, maybe that rebuild goes from a 6 or 7 year rebuild to a 2 or 3 one and can accelerate, right? So it's completely dependent.
Do you think Shane Wright is all that he is, though? Like, I don't know. I was higher on Lafreniere, and you look at what he's doing. I mean,
I don't think he's a Matthews. He's not a Matthews or a McDavid, but I think he's better than. Well, I think he's a little better than Lafreniere for sure. I think he's better than Hughes and like Nico Hischier, guys have been drafted first overall recently. So yeah, he may not be. He may not be a Matthews or McDavid or a top 2 or 3 player in the league, but I think Shane Wright absolutely has the potential to be a top 10, 15 player in the league, and absolutely has the capability of being a number 1 center in the league. The guy can score goals. I've seen him play some games in Kingston. He's going to be a good player, and they just can't rush him, right? I think that's the thing is New York went full board. They rushed Lafreniere. Maybe he needed a little more grooming, but Montreal just got to be smart. They've been kind of a team that hasn't been good at developing players. When you get a guy like Shane Wright, you have to develop him properly. So that's going to be on Montreal. Martin St. Louis, they brought in Vincent Lecavalier, and I think they'll do it right. I mean, that's just honestly what I think. I think Montreal's missing that number 1 center for the past 20 years, and they got a shot at him right now. So if they can get Shane Wright, I think all bets are off come 2 or 3 years. Maybe you see Montreal back in the playoffs with Carey Price on kind of the back, maybe the last 2 or 3 years of his career, and Shane Wright leading the charge. I think they definitely got a shot. They got Caulfield, they got Suzuki. They got some talented players there. I think just finding some complementary pieces to go around them, and they'll be okay. But they need the first overall pick. So if they don't get the first overall pick, it's complete dumpster fire, I think, at that point.
Isn't there a good player in second though from over in Europe?
Yeah, I just don't think it's the same.
You don't think it's the same? Like they were saying, they didn't think it. I don't know. I just don't know if I'm as high as a lot of people on Shane Wright. I'm not saying he's a bad player. What gets me excited is the year after is Connor Bedard. I mean, he's a guy that I'm like, oh, this guy's got some talent. Mm-hmm. He is a little bit smaller, but I don't know. I watched that guy, and I'm like, I'm more excited for this guy. I think he's, that's my opinion, but who knows what's going to happen in a whole year and a half from then to get Bedard. But I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, if you get Shane Wright, this way I look at it, though, is if you get Shane Wright, is he going to step into the lineup and be your first line center the first
100%
year?
No, but you got Suzuki there.
True enough. And hopefully they can groom him and maybe they can get something going next year. And if they can get Price back and maybe make a tweak or two, they can do maybe an accelerated rebuild and do something that kind of like New York Rangers did. Because, I mean, they've come out of nowhere. They're in a rebuild and then they got Panarin and then they got like high first.
And who was the GM
picks
of the New York Rangers during that accelerated rebuild? It was Jeff Gordon. So, I mean, he's there in Montreal now. So, I mean, he's got the experience of doing that, Brokey.
Was he the GM?
He was the guy that drafted Lafreniere and Kako. So.
Yeah, but let's not forget, this isn't on Jeff Gordon. I mean, they got like more bounces than you can think of. I'm not saying he did a terrible job, but I mean, I think you and I could have done pretty good too if we're getting
100%. But
three top 3 picks in 3 years, and
then
you make a trade for Panarin.
Yeah, I think it's the experience of being in it. Like he's been in this situation before, and if he lucks out again and gets the picks, he's considered a lucky guy, but he knows what pieces he needs to add to get the team to that point. So, it could be good things in Montreal. I don't think it's all horrible in Montreal. They've got to unload some guys. Like Petrie's got to go. Gallagher's got to go. You got to
the Gallagher contract.
You got to shed salary. The number one thing is they got to shed salary. You know what? I remember doing a keep trade cut last year, Brokey, and you said you would keep Gallagher over, I think, Johnny Gaudreau and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
No,
so
Johnny Gaudreau.
That one's not looking so hot.
No. I kept Johnny, and I think – what was it? Keep trade cut. Keep trade cut. 2 guys. You're only taking one. I don't think – was it Gallagher I was going to keep, or was it Johnny?
You said Gallagher. Because
I like Johnny. And Johnny Hockey's on a tear this year. He's doing really, really well again. It's funny, eh?
Yeah.
And I think he's in his contract here too. Pretty sure he's not under contract at the end of the year. So
100% he's a free
it'll be interesting to see what happens, and maybe they do something. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Gallagher ends up, but the Gallagher contract is, I think, the bad one, right? And Fleming, I mean, we talked about this last year, but look at how well Montreal did. I mean, they made the cup final, right? So that's the hardest thing, is looking at it and going, you're seeing so much success, and then it's the total opposite the next year, right? And everything works out for you one year. Obviously, you got Carey Price, the best goalie in the world, and then this year, nothing's going their way. They can't get any goaltending. Guys don't get in a groove, and that's how losing starts. And it's just and again, Weber, and there's other guys too, but it's definitely tough. I love Gallagher, but the problem with him is, it's for those type of players. They're smaller guys. They're in your face. They're taking a lot of punishment, and they don't have as many miles as a kind of a stay-at-home defenseman who's doing the cross checks. He's not getting really. I mean, I guess he might get hit a bit, but it's different, So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens in Montreal. I think there's definitely got to be a couple moves. We'll see what happens. I'm really interested. I hope they do well, just because I want to see Marty succeed as a coach.
I agree. Yeah. So it's nice to see Martin St. Louis and Vincent Lecavalier reunited, right? Two old guys from Tampa Bay. But let's move on here, Brokey. So another guy that probably loves playing the Montreal Canadiens right now, Brad Marchand. He gets served a 6-game suspension for punching Tristan Jarry in the head, and then he also does his little, not little, he slashes him pretty much in the face. So, 6-game suspension. I don't usually agree with the Department of Player Safety, and I don't know how you feel about this one, but I think they got this one bang on. I think it needed to be more than 5 games, and I think it's just time they sent a message to Brad Marchand. It's not so much the punch for me, Brokey. It's more so the stick to the face that's the challenge. He's kind of got that habit of when he gets in scrums after, he always puts his stick up and holds it like right here, and like almost he tells you, like, if you move, you're getting in the face, right? It's kind of more your problem. So, that's just something the league's got to get away from. I know Jarry's the only guy in that situation where doesn't get hurt badly by that situation because he's got his mask and his neck protector, right? So, I don't know. I think 6 games was bang on for that one for Marchand. He's got to get away from the stick work to the face, and I know he's not happy about it, but I think it was time the league sent a message, and I'm glad it was 6 games. I think that was bang on for me.
I didn't think it was that bad. I think you're watching too much CBC lately, Fleming. The punch to the head, I think
that is what it is. I'm not so much worried about the punch.
Yeah, like people are, it's after this, it's after this. Well, what's the difference from a slash? It wasn't like he tried to kill him. The only thing with the stick, and it is dangerous, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it belongs in hockey. Like, some of that stuff is a bit, it's a bit too much, and it does deserve a suspension. I think he got suspended on his past. I think that's clear as day. I think now that he's the leading.
But what's wrong with that? What's wrong getting suspended on your past? If you commit a crime.
The thing is, if you hit him, if he hits you in the face with that type of stick, he's not even cutting you. It wasn't that hard. He literally tapped him. Like, it's more just the thing is Bruins do this stuff. Why do they do it? Because it's an intimidation factor. You don't do anything to them, and that's what I love about Boston because this is crossing the line, but they do a lot of this stuff where, like, it's after the whistle, it maybe call it a cheap shot, but it's not. Sometimes it's like nobody got hurt, but it's like, you know what? You're coming to our house. We're going to do everything we can to intimidate you, to say we are going to stomp you. And that's how Bruins play. He went too far. He probably shouldn't have tapped him with his stick, but I mean, that's not a slash. It's a tap, a love tap. But still, if he would have hit me in the face, I wouldn't have been cut.
You can't put your stick in people's face.
I know you can't do it, but is it worth 6 games? I mean, to me, 2 or 3. But
okay,
I mean, if it's a new offender, maybe it's 1 or 2. But
exactly, but he's not a new offender. He has the most suspension in NHL history. It's kind of like
the Kadri, they're all minor suspensions. Like
Kadri's situation is kind of growing and growing and growing. And the league has shown if you keep it up, you're going to get. It's kind of like a double suspension each time. So I bet you the league said it was a 3-game suspension, but it's Brad Marchand, so now it's 6. This is his 2nd suspension this year, his 8th all time. And,
maybe the league should look into how much money Brad Marchand makes this league, because I'll tell you, he makes it more entertaining than anybody else, I think.
I agree.
From on the ice, off the ice. I mean, yeah, maybe McDavid and we got a couple guys in that loop, but he's in the top 5 of entertainment for this league, I think. Just because everything he brings, he's got everything, like the skill level, the playoffs, how they play. I mean, people are watching him because what's he going to do now? He's grabbing people's phones, he's chirping, the licking thing was way too far. I mean, he should have gotten the crap beat out of him for that. We know that. But, I love him. I would love to have him in Ottawa. I think it's hilarious what he did. I think there was too much. But, again, it's a mistake on his part because you got to know you're going to do something. The punch to me wasn't suspension worthy. I think Max, I think out of that game, I don't even know how much time was left, but
it was last minute of the game. Last minute.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, so it was kind of a scrum. What gets me though is how the hell does nobody on Pittsburgh grab him after he punches your goalie in the head? Just grab him and hold on to him. Man, I mean, how? That's I'm baffled on that. Like, I don't care if it's Sidney Crosby. Mm-hmm. Grab him. You don't even have to fight him. Well, just grab him and that's it. What are you doing? What
the weird thing is in that spot is Letang goes to grab and Letang kind of swings and the linesman body hug, bear hugs Chris Letang, so we can't get at him kind of thing, right?
Well, so someone else should have jumped in.
I know for sure. Someone should have jumped in. But just getting back to the Marchand point here is I think, in that instance, Brad Marchand's not a dumb guy. He knows what he's doing at all time. He knows the game's probably lost at that point, and he's sending a message for later in the year.
Oh, yeah.
And for maybe playoffs, but he sent a message to other teams, and you know what? Sometimes when you send a message, it costs you. So I mean, do I think Brad Marchand? I would sell my soul to have Brad Marchand on the Toronto Maple Leafs, but I think this time he crossed the line, and the league can't have guys swinging their sticks at people's faces. You know how dangerous that gets. Yeah. If that's someone without a visor or someone with a visor, I'm not saying this could happen, but you could severely hurt his eye or something like that, right? So I mean, it's just something the league can't encourage, and.
I think you're going a little far with it. I mean, guys get high stick way more often than that. But again, I'm not disagreeing and saying he should be able to do it, not get suspended. I just think 6 games is a lot.
Well,
I really do. But at the end of the day,
I think it's really 3, and then it's Brad Marchand, so it's doubled at this point.
To me, it's a 1 or 2 game suspension. So maybe 3 or 4 should have been it. And that was it. Anyways, that's the argument. I can't wait for him to get back. Having said that, we weren't going to talk about this, but I'll just talk real quick. We'll find out. This is launching on Monday. Boston plays Ottawa in about an hour from when we're taping. Guys, we're taping on Saturday. I'm excited because I've bet my old man he's a big Boston fan. So we'll find out. You guys will know who won. You'll know that Ottawa won. But they're missing. And the other thing to go on that, Bergeron's hurt. I don't know when he's going to be back. And Tuukka Rask had to retire because, I don't think he came back 100%. And he tried to fight through it. But so Boston's going to be interesting to come down the stretch here, buddy. Especially with Marchand missing 6 games and Bergeron, I still think they're in the playoff team. I mean, Detroit's not catching them, but the scary part is if they finish 7th or 8th, they could play they're going to play one of the top teams in the other in the division, right?
Realistically, at this point in the East, it's who do you want to play? Even if just say you get first place overall and you cross over, you have a shot to play Washington or Pittsburgh in the first round. You have a chance to play Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby if you're the first seed in the East. So I mean. I don't think you're looking. I don't think you're looking forward to your first round matchup under any circumstances. You know,
the East to me is just dominant. Like if you look at every team that's in the playoffs, I mean, it's gonna finish the way it is right now. I don't know about like where guys are gonna go. Teams could change, but I think the top eight's there.
Yeah.
No one else is slipping in. But having said that, like Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Washington, Pittsburgh. Florida's been on fire. Carolina scares me a little bit in the playoffs. I mean, Rob Brindamore,
they're
I think
the top team in the league right now.
Yeah, like, but you know,
and then the Rangers.
Who lost the other night again to Ottawa, by the way. But and then the Rangers. The Rangers are one that you just never know. They're a sleeper. I think if I wanted to play any team, that'd probably be the team I would pick.
100%, I'd pick the Rangers.
Just because of the other team, because of what the other teams have. But that's a tough conference. We're not just talking about one division now. Not saying that the West is a cakewalk, but the West more or less is a couple top teams and then more medium teams for me, right? Like the East to me is the battle. So it'll be interesting. Florida's been hot too this year, right? And we don't know what they're going to do. And you got Big Joe down there, and he's going to want to try and get a cup. And that Huberdeau, he can score. He's a phenomenal talent. He doesn't get talked about enough. But he is a phenomenal skill.
And
Barkov's the other guy. Yeah, Barkov's the guy.
Sam Bennett's lighting up in Florida now too.
It's funny that Bennett won. Remember Bennett last year, and they couldn't even. They were playing him on the fourth line in Calgary and everything else.
Healthy scratch
a few games, and then they finally take him to Florida, and he's just been lighting it up, playing like first line minutes. And it's funny, guys. Just sometimes they need a change. You change the scenery, change the coach. Maybe it's play with a couple good players and. The sky's the limit. Last year, Calgary was a bit of a dumpster fire, and they got rid of Bennett. Now they're doing well, so it's hard to argue the trade either way, right? So
100%, yeah. So you ready to move on to the last topic here for the day,
buddy.
Brokey? So Marcus Foligno gets a 2-game suspension, so we're back to suspensions here. So if anyone didn't see, Marcus Foligno fights Adam Lowry early in the Jets Wild game there the other night, and they go once, a decent fight, and then they go again later in the game. You can tell Foligno's hot, so him and Lowry go. I'd say Lowry wins at least the first fight. The second one's a toss-up. But when they're on the ground, Foligno throws like a UFC-style knee, like right to the top of Lowry's head. Department of Player Safety comes down, says 2 games. And, I think 2 games is perfect. I mean, the NHL is nice enough to let us see fighting on a regular basis. And when you knee a guy in the head after a fight, that's not allowed. So 2 games, no problem with that. To all the people that say get fighting out of the game, look what it leads to. Shut up. Just let us fight. That's all we want to do. Hockey has an intimidation factor to it, like the Marchand thing. It's something to be said. Maybe Lowry's thinking about that next time, or any time someone's going Foligno, they know, hey, this guy's a little fucking crazy. Maybe I don't want to piss him off. So, I mean, sending a message and, he'll serve the 2 games and he'll be sad, but he'll be back.
You're going to feel sad in the penalty box.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Let's not talk about past. What was worse, the Marchand incident or the knee to the head? I don't want to talk about past, just 2 incidents.
Yeah, so just taking all the context, that Marchand's thing was on a goalie because the goalie's got a full face shield. I would say the Foligno thing's probably worse, to be honest. If Marchand did that to a player, I'd probably say Marchand, though.
Yeah, well, it's tough, right? And now we're talking 2 to 6 games, and again, you said Marchand should have been 3 or 4, and it got doubled to 6. So, I mean, are you contradicting yourself a bit, Fun? Did I catch you a bit, or?
No, I think my explanation was good. If Marchand did that to a player, I'd probably say it was worse than the Foligno.
But it wasn't to a player; it was a goalie, right?
Exactly. I'd say when you're taking the context into it, I'd say Foligno's is probably worse because it's more dangerous. It's more dangerous.
The one I don't like about the Foligno one is obviously the goalie knows that he's kind of got protected and he didn't hit him that hard. But the Foligno one, like the guy's on the ground and he's kind of holding him, like they're kind of on him, and then you're coming in, and he come in with power too, like. And
Lowry had given up too, like he's not.
And the difference to me is like Foligno come in with power, like to almost try and hurt the guy. Where like to me the Marchand one, like he can't have a stick up. I get that, but he didn't swing it like he's like trying to hurt him. It was more like you could tell it was an intimidation, like a tap. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's where I'm like, Jesus, I don't like either. Both are suspension worthy, but the Foligno one to me just I feel like there could be a lot more dangerous out of that. With how the style of the tap to the head with the stick to the knee to the head. I mean, knee to the head. I mean, we saw what happened kind of with the Bertuzzi thing and how the guy, that's a totally different thing. I get it. It's way worse, but, he's still on the ground and whatnot. So scares me a bit, but sometimes that stuff happens. The guys get, high tempers, and we don't know what happened, if something happened before that, if the reason why they're fighting.
That was their second fight of the game, right? So, I mean, they're obviously not feeling each other that fucking night.
Yeah, and maybe it was something from the past is what I'm saying.
No, so early in the game, what happened – on the first fight, what happened is Brendan Dillon hit Foligno. Clean hit. Well, I mean, not even clean hit, but he hit him in the open ice. Greenway grabs a hold of Dillon for Winnipeg. And then Foligno's like trying to come in and be like the third man into the fight. And Lowry jumps on Foligno and like grabs him by like the back of the shirt. And he ragdolls him a little bit. And then they go the first time, right? So I think Foligno's probably hot that he got pulled out by Lowry the first time. And like Lowry did kind of ragdoll him a little bit. It probably is embarrassing to a guy like Foligno who considers himself a tough guy a little bit. So I think that's where the beef kind of stemmed from to start that game in particular.
Yeah, so, and we don't know what they had before that too, is what I'm saying, right? Like even before that game. But I don't know. I like it. I don't like the knee, but I like fought a couple times. I like the emotions, I like that. I guess a couple games suspension, I'm all right with that. I mean, I'm fine with the suspension for that one, to be honest. I just feel like the Marchand was a bit too much, but it is what it is. He is fighting it, by the way, the Marchand one, to sort of go back to that, but I believe they are challenging it. And that's the other thing we didn't talk about. So people are arguing because it's the NHLPA that's fighting it on his behalf. And they're like, well, shouldn't they – people were complaining that, like, shouldn't they stick up for the goalie as well? As you say, Jari, right? Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, Jari, yeah.
Yeah, Jari. And shouldn't they stick up for him as well? Because he's part of the NHLPA. Oh, it must be nice to be Marchand. But I think they just realized they think in their mind it shouldn't be that long, like me. Mm-hmm. So it's not that they don't think probably not a suspension. It's not that they're going against them, right? Mm-hmm. Going against Jari. They just think that it's probably too long.
That's just the point of what a union is if a union member has a problem, you have to deal with it no matter what the instance is. It's kind of like a defense attorney, like just because, it's the worst person in the world doesn't mean that you can't represent them. Like the players pay into dues to be in the union. So if Brad Marchand's, if Brad Marchand took Christian Jari's eye out at that point and says, hey, appeal to suspension, the union's kind of got to fight on his behalf, right? I mean, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah. So and we'll see what happens. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets lowered to 4. I don't think it's going to go any lower than that.
Well, that's what happened to Spezza. Spezza got 6 for the knee, and it got lowered to 4, right? So
yeah, the Spezza one was a bit. And the Spezza one I thought was too much again, especially with his past and everything he's done. I think he did deserve something. I don't want to get back into that, but he did deserve something there. But 6 was too much. But I think if I'm a bet man, it gets lowered to 4, and we call it a day. And somewhat there's we'll go from there.
So El Presidente, where are you off to? I heard you're flying out. You're looking to do an interview for BOOclub Sports coming out, right? So you're taking a little trip on BOOclub Sports. So tell the fans where you're going.
I just need your credit card, Fleming. We'll see where I am next interview, Flem. We'll see where I am next interview.
Okay, yeah. So BOOclub Sport, Brokey might be on assignment next week doing an interview.
On assignment,
maybe in Mexico, Cuba, something like that. So we'll see.
We'll see. When you can work from home, it's a little bit easier to go. I can't leave too far in the summer, bud, with the asphalt, score asphalt. I can't go for anywhere else for more than 2 days.
And pay it for sports with a pile of tournaments, so it's going to be busy.
Yeah, tournaments are going to be busy this summer, so I'm excited. I'm excited for all of our tournaments. Like we said, let's March 18th, 19th, and 20th, 3-on-3 All-Star Championship in Belleville World Elite. Only a few spots left, rec and competitive divisions. And then we got the big one, Kings of 4 Championship. Winning team wins a trip to Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, or they can use it as a travel credit. So that's a huge prize. The cost for that one is $1,100, tax included, so it's still less than $100 per guy when you can win prizes like that. BOOclub Sports is also going to give away an entire team Blue Jays tickets for this season at the 4-on-4 championship. So it's going to be a ton of fun. Get a hold of us. You can do them on payitforwardsports.ca or send us an email, pifsports@gmail.com.
pifsports2021@gmail.com.
Oh, sorry. pifsports2021@gmail.com. You can also send us a Facebook message. That's probably the easiest for a lot of you people, or a YouTube message, whatever you want to do. And let's get your teams in, guys. We're getting more teams in every day, actually. So it's starting to really, really come. And we're excited for what's to be in store. And not only that, guys, we didn't mention this yet, but we are accepting applications with Pay It Forward Sports for underprivileged kids in our community to get them in sports. We already have funds in our – we already have money in our fund ready to allocate to kids for spring and summer sports. So apply. You have until March 25th to apply. We are trying to spread the news out as much as we can. We're going to be on the radio this week and more news outlets. So trying to help as many kids. If you know anybody, maybe they're down in the dumps, their parents or their guardians or whatever, and they love to get them in sports. They can't afford it. We're the guys to come to. So get a hold of us, apply, and we're going to do what we can to help as many kids as we can this spring and summer. And don't worry if you're looking for hockey next year. We will have another application come this summer for fall and winter sports next year.
Absolutely well said, Brokey. So I think we'll wrap that up. So that's it for this episode of the Battle of Ontario Hockey Podcast. Like Brokey said, March 18th to 20th, World Elite 3-on-3. And then April 8th to 10th, the Kings of 4-on-4, the biggest hockey tournament the Quinte region's going to see this year, maybe in quite some time. But that's it for me. Brokey, I got one question for you, bud. Are you in?
I'm Jeff Brokema, and I'm in the Boot Club.